everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome back to my crochet channel. Weren't Max and Rosie, my puppies, just adorable in their autumn dog bandanas? Now this is a pattern I wrote a few years ago, and originally it was written just for small and extra small dogs. And I had some requests from one of my favorite dog rescues to make the pattern bigger because they like to give a bandana with every dog and even kitty cat that is adopted. And so what we did is we retested the pattern. We added this cute little pumpkin, and I'm going to show you how to make the pumpkin applique at the end of the video, so you can add it on if you would like to. So the pattern now comes in 5 sizes: extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. And I'll give you all those sizes when we get farther on in the video. But also, you can click that link that's provided down in the notes under the video for all the information with all the sizing and things like that, as well as pictures. Again, that's under the video in that notes section. To make your autumn bandana for your dog or cat, you're going to, of course, need some yarn. Now, I chose this yarn here. This is called Autumn Stripe. It's from I Love This Yarn, which is Hobby Lobby, but you can use any yarn that you would like to. I love this color in these autumn colors, but if you would prefer to make this in solids, you certainly can. Or you can stripe it yourself if you have some autumn colors in your yarn stash. And the truth is, this is a basic slide-on bandana that goes right over your dog's neck. There's no buttons or snaps or anything. It's just a tube. We slide it right on, and so you can use any colors that you want to. We just decided to do fall colors because, you know, it's almost fall. And depending on the size that you'll make, you'll need anywhere from 1 ounce to 5 ounces because it goes up with every size. All right, so any medium weight number 4 yarn will work for this project. Now I chose this rust color and this green. This is a green with a little bit of sparkle in it. I thought that was a little bit fun. And this one here, I believe, is the party. And then this one here is just Red Heart Super Saver that I have in a rust color. And I wanted it to pop out away from the color so that you could see the pumpkin but still blend in nicely. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You're going to need your needle for weaving in ends and, of course, for sewing on your pumpkin. And, of course, you need your scissors. The other thing you need is your tape measure. You need to measure your dog's neck, and when you do that, you need to do that a little bit loose because this you want to slide on and be comfortable on your dog. You want it to just slide right on their neck, and you don't have to take off their collar or anything. Just slide it on because we're going to make it flat. We'll stitch the back together, and then we can just slide it right on their neck. That way, if it gets dirty, you can take it off and wash it. The first thing you need to do is measure your dog's neck. And remember, we need to measure loosely so that it can fit around their neck comfortably. My dogs wear the small size, and so I'm going to be making the small size. But let's talk about those sizes real quick. The extra small will fit a 6 to 8 inch neck. The small size will fit a 10 to 12 inch neck. The medium size will fit a 14 to 16 inch neck. The large will fit a 18 to 20 inch neck. And then the extra large will fit a 22 to 24 inch neck. Once you've measured your dog's neck, you can determine which size you need to make. We're going to begin first by starting with our slip knot, and I want you to start with a good 12 inches of yarn on your tail. And that's because we're going to be stitching the collar flat that we'll be attaching the bandana to, and then we'll be sewing it closed. And we can use this tail of yarn to sew that closed. So here's my, oops, here's my slip knot. And now we're going to chain. If you're making the extra small, you need to chain 26 chains. If you're making the small, chain 38. If you're making the medium, chain 44. If you're making the large, chain 50. And if you're making the extra large, you'll need to chain 56 chains. I'm going to be making the small size, so I'm going to be chaining 38 chains. And remember to chain this just a little bit loose. Once you have chained the length you need for the size you're making, we're going to begin by stitching a row of double crochets. So yarn over and go in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through both loops, yarn over and go through the last 2 loops. And then we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those chains across. And this is stitched the same for all sizes. You'll just have different amounts with different sizes. 1 double crochet in each of the chains across. I began in the 4th chain from the hook, and I stitched 1 double crochet in each stitch across. I have 36 double crochets, and remember we count this chain 3 as our first double crochet. Now, if you're stitching the extra small, you're going to have 24 double crochets. If you're stitching the small like mine, you'll have 36. If you're making the medium, you'll have 42. If you're making the large, you'll have 48. And if you're making the extra large, you'll have 54 double crochets. I chained 3, and I'm going to turn my work. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across. And this is the same for all sizes. 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. There we go. And again, all sizes, stitch 1 double crochet in each double crochet across. 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across, chain 3 and turn. And now for row 3, we're just going to repeat what we did for row 2. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in each of the double crochets across. And this is a little bit thicker of a band than I usually put on a bandana for my dogs, but I figure this will work similar to how a cowl works and keep their neck a little bit warmer. And so we're going to stitch 3 rows of double crochet. We have our initial row, row 2, and now row 3, 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets across. And that will give us 3 rows of double crochets. I completed that 3rd row of double crochet, so I have 3 rows of double crochet. Now, if you would like the band on your bandana to be a little bit thicker, maybe you're making it for a bigger dog and you want that warmth around their neck, you can continue to add more rows of double crochet until it's as thick as you would like it. All right, let's add the bandana. We've chained 1 and we're going to turn our work. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch, it's just a turning chain. And what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch in a few of the beginning stitches. Now, if you're making the extra small, you're going to slip stitch in the first 6 stitches. If you're making the small like I am, slip stitch in the first 10. If you're making the medium, 12. If you're making the large, 14. And if you're making the extra large, 16 slip stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch in the first 10. We'll go in, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop on our hook. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I slip stitched in the first 10. Now I'm going to go to the next double crochet. I'm going to slip stitch and chain 3. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And if you're going to be stitching up the extra small, you'll need to stitch 11 more double crochets. If you're stitching the small, like I am, you'll need to stitch 15 more double crochets. If you're stitching up the medium size, you'll need to stitch 17 more double crochets. If you're stitching up the large, 19. And if you're stitching up the extra large, 21 double crochets. All right, so since I'm stitching up the small size, I need to stitch 15 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then once you've stitched the amount of double crochets for your size, we're going to leave these last ones unworked, and we'll be stitching the center portion for our bandana. Once you've stitched your first row of your double crochets for the bandana portion, we're going to chain 1 and turn. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to be stitching 2 half double crochets together. So we'll yarn over. We're going to go in this first stitch and pull up a loop. Then we'll go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. Yarn over and go through all 4 of those loops. We're stitching half double crochets, and we stitch the first 2 together. Now we're going to stitch 1 half double crochet in each of the stitches across until we reach the last 2 stitches. When we reach the last 2 stitches, we'll stitch the 2 together. And just in case you're not sure what the half double crochet is, yarn over, go in and pull up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3 of those loops. I like the half double crochet in this portion because it makes a more condensed stitch. All right, so I've stitched 1 half double crochet in each of those stitches across until I get to the end where I have 2 stitches left. So I'll yarn over, go in the next stitch and pull up a loop, then I'll go in the last stitch and pull up a loop. There'll be 4 loops on your hook instead of the 3. Yarn over and go through all of those stitches, or those loops I should say, and chain 1. We've chained 1, so we're going to turn our work, and we're going to repeat what we did on the previous row. We're going to yarn over and stitch these first 2 stitches together, half double crochet together. Then we'll half double crochet in each of the stitches across until we get to those last 2 stitches. I'm to my last 2 stitches, so we'll stitch these 2 half double crochets together. And chain 1. And now what you're going to see is it's going to gradually move down into a point. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to continue to repeat this row, which is row 6, until it comes down to where we only have 2 stitches. Okay, and so what we'll do is continue to stitch our 2 half double crochets together at the beginning of our row. We'll stitch 1 half double crochet in each of the stitches across until we reach those last 2 stitches. And then we'll stitch those last 2 stitches together. Half double crochet together, or half double crochet, decrease. Chain 1, turn, and repeat until you get all the way down to where you only have 2 half double crochet stitches left. And again, the amount of rows will depend on how big you made your bandana. If you made it much bigger, it's going to take you a little longer to get down to those 2, and your bandana will be a little bit longer. Half double crochet together or decrease at the beginning and end of each row with half double crochets in between. So I continued to decrease at the beginning and end of each row, working my half double crochets down to a point to where I only have 2 left, and these 2 are both half double crochet decrease stitches. And so I'll chain 1 and then stitch those 2 together. And that makes the point of my bandana. So I'll go ahead and cut my yarn, tie that off, and then I'll just take my needle and weave this in. I don't put any trim on this particular bandana because I don't really think that it needs it. But if you would like to add a little trim on it, you can do a row of single crochets or fancy it up with some shell stitches or something. I just don't think it needs it. Sometimes when I use a yarn that is just gorgeous like this one, I like the yarn to speak instead of the stitches. Just my opinion, and of course, you can do what works best for you. Okay, so now I have my bandana and my little cowl neck section, and we're going to use this long tail of yarn that we started with and sew the 2 ends together. Now you can decide which side you want to be your front or your back of your bandana. And what we're going to do is put it with the right side on the inside, put those 2 ends together, and we'll thread this long tail of yarn onto our needle, and then we'll just use some whip stitches and whip the end together. If you would prefer to use your crochet hook and slip stitch it, you can. I just like to use these little whip stitches. And make sure you stitch it good because you don't want it to come off their neck. And I'm just using what I call little whip stitches, stitching the 2 ends together. And again, you can use slip stitches if you want to and crochet it together. It's up to you. Alright, I'll take a look at it, make sure it's nice and secure. Alright, then I'll just weave that in. And sometimes I'll go all the way back up to do with some of my whip stitching, just to make sure it's going to hold. There we go. especially on that top there. And just make sure it's not coming undone. All right, so the sides are stitched together. I'm going to flip it out. And there's just your basic bandana that you can slide on your dog. I'm going to show you how to make this cute little sort of 3D pumpkin that will fancy up the front of our bandana just a little bit and make it look a little bit festive for fall. All right, so I'm going to use this rusty kind of colored orange. You can use a bright orange or more towards the yellow. It's up to you, or what you have in your yarn stash. All right, so I made a slip knot and I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to stitch, depending on how puffy I want to make this, into the chain 3. So we'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, go through the second 2. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, this, if you put it together, will make a nice size pumpkin. I want mine to be a little bit puffier, so I'm going to add 2 more double crochets. 1 and 2. Okay, so that gets us 8 double crochets because our chain 3 counted as 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches. All right, so we're going to join to that first chain 3 with a slip stitch. We're going to cut our yarn. We're going to give ourselves a tail of yarn so we can use that to sew it onto our bandana. All right, so I'm going to go in that next stitch, pull that loop to the back, and tie that off. All right, now I'm just going to take my needle and make sure there's not a hole in the center of my pumpkin. So we'll just go around that. If you don't want your pumpkin quite as 3D, you can do less double crochets so it lays flatter. It's totally up to you how puffy you want your little pumpkin. I kind of want mine a little bit 3D. I think it's fun. All right, so I've weaved this in. Go ahead and cut that off. Get that out of the way. All right, so let's take our little pumpkin, and I like it poofed up a little so it's kind of 3D. We'll put that on our needle, and then we'll decide where we want to put that. I want it to stick out, and I think it might blend in too much down here in these colors, so I'm going to put this one up just a little bit higher in those green rows. All right, so we'll just go under, and we'll come up right around this edge where we have stitches, and I kind of go forward, and then I go back to the one I missed, and then I give it just a gentle pull, and that's going to cause it to get a little bit puffy. Like I said, I like it just a little bit 3D, so I'm just going around those edges, back and forth. I go up and then back, and I'm going in that row of stitches. Feels pretty good, so I'm going to go to the back and just weave that in. We don't want our pumpkin coming off. And although I'm putting this on my dog bandana, you can use this little pumpkin applique on anything. All right, so now I have my little pumpkin. I'm going to kind of pull it out a little. And I want to make a little leaf. So I'm going to grab some of this green. And I'm going to make a real quick and simple leaf. So I'm going to do a slip knot. I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to half double crochet in the third chain. I'm going to chain 2 and then slip stitch in that same stitch. All right, and that just makes a fun little leaf. Give myself a little bit to sew it on with. And also I want this to be a little bit longer because I want to make a little bit of a stem out of that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is take the short end and just go in the top of the pumpkin and through the bandana and pull it to the back. There we go. All right, that was the short end, and now I'm going to take the long end that we left. There we go. And you can do longer if you want a longer stem. All right, I'm going to go in the pumpkin and go to the back again. That's going to attach our leaf. And then I'm going to go back in the pumpkin and make a couple of stitches. Now make sure when you do these that you go through some stitches and not holes, okay? Because you'll lose that stem in the holes. Just a couple of them where it looks like it has a stem. All right, and then I'm going to just go to the back. Just make a little loop like this so that stays put. And if you want your leaf to stick out like that, that's fine. I don't, because I don't want to get caught in my dog's toenails or teeth. So I'm going to come up here and just go through the top of that leaf just so it stays attached flat. All right, so then I'll come back here. And then I'm going to tie a knot because I want that to stay put really good. And you know I like to do 3, give it a good tug and clip. I always tie 3 knots. I don't know why, I just always have. All right, so now you've got a little pumpkin with a little leaf, and you can see it's in a little bit different place than this one. And this one's for Rosie, this one's for Maximo. And I love them. And again, if your dog is bigger than the extra large, just add more chains. Just make sure you center the bandana portion in the center of that band. All right, now my dogs are ready for all our fall fun.